how to start this because it's new.
I mean, generally, aren't you just eating something and then it's like, hey, we're starting the
Yeah,
podcast.
but this isn't permadeath. This is different.
This is like a permadeath spin-off, so...
Yeah, it's like we are the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee to the main series of Pokemon games. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new thing, being the Permadeath Postgame, in which me and some other people are getting together to discuss more centralised topics when it comes to podcasts. Because I know some people have said about Permadeath before, you know, you guys should talk more about what's going on because it sucks that you cut yourselves off because you don't have enough time or whatever. So we're making time. How does that sound? Good?
It sounds pretty damn good.
It sounds like a pretty damn good idea. I agree.
It does.
Good, then we will continue, because if you'd said it sounds bad, I probably would have just gone and played some Moonlighter instead.
Oh wait, if I say it's bad, I can just go? Okay, cool. See ya.
No.
Okay.
You're here now.
It would have been my responsibility to say it was a bad idea like 3 months ago.
Yeah, this has been a planned thing for a long time, and I just haven't gotten around to doing it, but now we're doing it, so hooray. Joining me is, of course, Kinross.
Hi. I'm not necessarily an of course, but I'd hope by this point you know what I sound like is the thing.
Unless this is your first time here, in which case welcome. But
in that case, who are you?
I'm Ebbie.
There you go.
At BazarJelly5 on Twitter. And joining us today is Andy, aka Ryu101. My voice has already started to go and we're 2 minutes into recording.
Hi. Thank you for having me on
Hello.
the show, like your very first show. Hopefully it's not too much of a car crash.
If it's a car crash, it's because of you.
Thanks.
Because Permadeath
anyway.
always goes perfectly smoothly, so anything different is Andy's fault.
It's definitely Andy's fault.
Great, getting the blame Andy's in already.
Shame. Anyway, Andy, what do you do? Because you're new here.
Oh god, yeah. I didn't even expect to be doing this so soon, so I kind of wasn't ready. But
I figured we'd get it in at the start because people might drop off by the end. So
okay, cool. Well, if you're having fun so far, I stream on twitch.tv/Roy101 RYW101, and at the minute I stream on Mondays and Wednesdays, 7 PM BST or GMT, whatever the local time is, and I'm streaming a number of games at the minute. Which is apparently humorous with Kinross, but what is this?
He's just laughing about that if you're having fun already.
If you like what you've heard so far, give us a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell button.
Do we need to start this again?
No.
Sorry.
Okay.
So Andy is currently streaming Yakuza 0 and I don't think Borderlands is a regular thing, but he did that yesterday, so...
Yeah, so I'm currently doing Yakuza 0 after weeks and weeks of Ebbie and Kinross and everyone else just saying, you should play Yakuza 0, and I eventually gave in. So we're doing that on Wednesdays, and then at the minute on Mondays we're doing Stardew Valley with both Kinross
Oh yeah,
and
that's
Ebbie.
what you're doing.
That is the other thing, you know, the thing that you're involved in. So...
I like how I mentioned Borderlands, which I didn't even watch because I was playing Moonlighter. Oh my god. Anyway, yeah, join us for Stardew Valley on Mondays, even though this will be out after Monday, probably.
Twitch.tv/Roy101. Join. Like, comment, subscribe.
It will be linked in the description of the YouTube video. I don't know how iTunes works, so we'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
Anyway, today's discussion is going to be about E3, because obviously it's going to be about E3. Everything is about E3, and our discussion today is going to be about whether we think it's still relevant in today's, I don't know how to describe it, social media announcing place. Leaking, everything. But first things first, I said I was going to give you an on-the-spot question.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
Because I wanted your truest of reactions.
Is the on-the-spot question, do you think E3 is still relevant?
No.
Damn it.
I want us to remember E3 fondly for a moment.
Okay.
So what are your favourite E3 moments?
Oh, Jesus. I'll let
So
you
I'll
go
tell you
first,
mine.
Kinross. Or Ebbie, yeah.
The Twilight Princess reveal, the Breath of the Wild reveal.
But why? You can't just say the
You
reveal.
didn't say
gotta be
why.
like, why?
I don't really remember the Twilight Princess one. I think that it was mostly because I think that was my first E3 that I watched.
People were hype.
Yeah. And then of course there was the E3 with the Wii Music and Cammy Dunaway on a Wii Fit board with, I want to say Tony Hawk. It's not Tony Hawk. The skate man. The
Shaun White.
Shaun White. That was a moment.
That was such a bad press conference.
It was pretty
like
bad.
even putting aside the Wii Music thing, that was such a bad press conference.
Breath of the Wild. Weirdly, I didn't care too much when it was. I didn't care about the first announcement where it was the Guardian chasing Link through the forest and there was the big explosions and things. I was kind of about that one, but the subsequent ones is where it started to get pretty cool for me. Trying to remember other E3 moments. Bill reacting to Shenmue.
Oh!
Yeah. Those are mine. That immediately spring to mind.
I think a couple of years ago, I think it was, when Yakutara just came out in that weird
The Emil head.
the Emil head, and everyone's like, who the hell's that? Just popping out on stage and just like
Little did they know.
So there was that. There was the Ubisoft announcement last year with the Mario and Rabbids. Just how
that was so
heartfelt
good.
and like how cool that was. Just the collab between them and Nintendo. And it felt very genuine, like how that announcement was. And the other one was on the Sony, when they had the band playing, and it was just kind of like this slow build up with all the music. Just
For
building
God
up.
of War.
When they announced God of War.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was really cool.
Yeah, because they had that woman with the weird vocals on, and everyone was like, "What is this?"
What's happening here?
I've got a couple of favourite moments.
Mm-hmm.
One
Also
of them is
Miyamoto
not-
pulling out a Pikmin from his pocket, going.
That GIF is the best GIF that's ever existed, in my opinion. So I have one which was when I don't know if you'll remember this because this is really specific and it's from a game that I have not played.
Mm-hmm.
But when The Last Guardian got announced and there was like the audience reaction and there was just that guy like stood up with his hands in the air. I don't know if you remember
I
that.
don't remember that at all.
But I'll link it afterwards. But
I'm also
that
suddenly
was my
remembering
favourite reaction shot ever.
the entire Bethesda Elder Scrolls Online conference of.
Jesus.
Another one of my favourite ones in terms of like things that I've seen, but I didn't obviously watch it at the time because this is from a very old game, and I think it was I'm gonna actually double check that it was E3 before I start talking about this.
Peggle 2.
No.
Basically, I remember the meme moments, and
Yes. Okay. So this was at E3 2001.
Oh,
so
God.
this I think was before they
while
even
ago.
started like showing people who weren't there what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
But if you Google Smash Bros Melee E3, there's like a reaction of Super Smash Bros Melee's like cinematic trailer, and the reactions from the crowd in that video genuinely make me want to cry because everyone's just like so excited and happy, and that's what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Yep.
In terms of other favourite moments, I don't know that I have any. Because most of the time when I think about E3, I personally remember like I remember that EA Sports where Pele was there.
Oh my god! What even was that interview?
It was about FIFA.
I don't know.
It was asking Pele about football.
Yeah,
in
but like when I'm gonna double check this, like when Pele actually played. When was
He was in the
last-
80s, I think, maybe
Yeah, it was
early 90s.
Because he hasn't really been relevant for like fucking years. Sorry, are we allowed to swear on this?
Yeah.
Okay, he hasn't been relevant for years. Like,
I like how
I
the
like how I
second
said,
time.
yeah, you're allowed to swear, and then you're like, I'm gonna cut the swear.
1977 was the last time he played. Like,
Oh, God.
come on. Most of the people watching E3 or that are younger won't even like know anything about him.
I reckon unless you're a proper football fanatic, you would not have had a clue. And I guess that's who it was for, really. But
Those
40
football
years
fans.
ago. 40 years ago was the last time he played. Like,
I just think like stuff like that couldn't that be its. And I know Kinross is going to agree with me, but like its own thing. Like in the lead up to FIFA coming out, be like, oh, the press circuit's on. Let's interview Pele. Like, don't do it at E3. Now that we've talked about the good times of E3, we're going to talk about whether or not we think it's still relevant in today's modern gaming market. So, I think just to clarify here, we are not talking about E3 as a whole, because E3 is obviously still very relevant in the show floor aspect of things. But whether we think the press conferences and the build up to it is still relevant, considering how many games have been announced before E3?
At least 5.
A lot. So we've had Assassin's Creed was announced yesterday, the day before, something like that. I don't know. We've had Rage 2, Fallout 76, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, Battlefield 5. What else?
Black Ops 4.
Black Ops 4. Like a bunch of stuff before E3. So what are you guys thinking on this subject? I would like to hear your thoughts.
I've said it before that I think that the Nintendo Direct model has sort of ruined me a little bit, because I've gotten used to the idea of this company giving at least quarterly sort of announcements of new games and updates on what's going on. So for me, Nintendo's E3 is weird. I guess I just class it as a typically more hype quarterly direct. And so I sort of expect Microsoft and Sony and those guys to sort of follow that model, because I think it's a really good model. But instead
Sony sort of has
they're PSX and
PSX.
Yeah.
But I know it's not the same, but they have something outside of E3.
I guess they're like twice a year they've got something. So I think for me E3 is I like E3 because it's a lot of announcements all in one place, rather than I have an announcement here, I've got an announcement there, and it's fairly plausible that with how busy things like Twitter and the tech market and game market is, that you might miss that something was announced. And so it's nice to have either a direct that you can be like, okay, here's an hour of games announced, or an E3 where there's an hour of games announced, rather than 2 weeks ago Battlefield 5 got announced with a small stream, Fallout 76 got announced with a 24-hour build-up for a 60-second trailer.
I don't want to talk about that stream.
Yeah, I don't.
And also on that sort of note as well, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee were announced at a press-only event.
Yes.
Where we were just getting bits and pieces of information sort of trickling through as it happened.
You can now watch that video. So it was recorded, it wasn't streamed, and I can only assume it was
Why didn't they just stream it?
I'm assuming it's for translation reasons. It was easier to translate in post than it was live.
But hang on, but it's did they? Because I haven't seen like the actual show. I've just seen the trailers of it. But surely did they have a stage show to show everything and like translate it there? Because like people have done that before. E3 they translate there at the show.
It was sort of like a proper business conference, like a small stage with like 200 people in it. From what I can tell, all of them spoke Japanese, but the questions were translated in the Q&A, but all of the trailers and stuff was in Japanese, so I can only assume that the entire thing was in Japanese, and then translated afterwards for YouTube.
Well, why didn't they just stream it in Japanese? I would have watched it. That would have been way more hype than Twitter update.
But yeah, I mean, they could have quite easily just done another trailer. Like, well, they did do another trailer in English, and they could have just streamed out at the same time. Like, what was the? Anyway,
well, all of the discussion-y stuff of like game mechanics,
I mean, they didn't.
And I don't know.
What I don't understand with that announcement, this is not on topic particularly, but what I don't understand with that announcement is why it wasn't a direct.
Yeah, it is the sort of thing that would have normally been a direct, wouldn't it?
Like, they could have been... Like, you could say they didn't stream it because, you know, it was all in Japanese and they didn't want to translate it at the time. But surely it would have just been easier to pre-record a thing.
Unless they... I mean...
It just seems lazy, like, to me, because people are hyped about, like, Pokemon games coming to the Switch. Like, ever since the Switch has been coming out, people have gone, oh, when's the next Pokemon game going to be on there? When's it going to be on there? And it just seems like they didn't do it properly. Like, if you're like into Pokemon, but you're not into sort of trying to keep up with Nintendo, you could have quite easily missed that, unless you are like following like all of like the YouTube and like Reddit and stuff like that. And all of the YouTubes. It just seems like they fluffed it for something such an
for something
important
like
announcement.
Pokemon, yeah.
Yeah, it was weird.
If it was some weird like niche franchise that Nintendo had,
honestly,
then maybe I could understand it a bit more. But...
It almost feels like they held this announcement with the expectation that no one was going to live tweet it, and it would be like a closed room discussion, and then it would be sort of released later after like the Q&A had happened and all of that, rather than it being like a live stream. I
think that was.
Doesn't this draw this back to sort of our conversation of like whether E3 is relevant? Whereas if they hadn't done it there, and if they'd done it at E3, all eyes would have been on Nintendo anyway, and they would have gone, oh shit, there's a new Pokemon game out now, instead of like people trying to get information from dribs and drabs everywhere else. Whereas at least if you know, okay, Nintendo's going to be doing something at this time, all eyes are going to be on it, and then it's more likely to get the message out about it.
Yeah. I think that was the main issue with that as well, was it got announced that it was happening like half an hour before it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it was stupid early in the morning for me, and I was just about to go to bed, and Bill was like, don't go to bed, you have Pokemon to watch. And
I woke up in the middle of the night and I had Pokemon to watch.
Like, it's just one of those things where I would have preferred to have known about it a little bit in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just being like...
Well,
it was a weird day, because I came off of the Bethesda stream, they'd put the fucking bobblehead to bed, and then I was like, oh, Pokemon now.
Bethesda knew that you needed enough time to build up to an announcement. You don't want just half an hour, you need a 26-hour stream of a bobblehead.
Let me tell you... I didn't want to talk about it.
You can cut it.
I don't want to talk about this, but let me tell you about it anyway.
I didn't want to talk about it because it was really annoying, because I watched that stream for fucking hours and nothing happened. And then the minute that I leave the house to go to an appointment that I had, Todd Howard's like, here's Fallout 76.
Yeah.
The minute.
Just sending out tweets to Ebbie and... actually get one back saying I was out.
And I was in a fucking hospital, and they've got signal blockers everywhere, so I had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, it was.
Anyway.
It was unfortunate. So Andy,
true permadeath fashion.
Yeah.
Do you think E3 is still relevant?
I think going back to what I was saying before, I think it is in a way, not necessarily in its current format. I think you could quite happily just get rid of the whole stage show presence and sort of go to a whole Nintendo sort of model, like the Direct, because like stage shows,
but
yeah.
How
they're
Microsoft announced a car?
Wait. Exactly. We won't see the car at Microsoft.
I mean, they could still do it. They could still do it on their thing, just being like, oh, and here's a car, just halfway through their thing.
I gotta be honest, like, part of the charm of E3 for me for a really long time has been
Tech
seeing
issues.
how the hosts mess up.
Yeah.
There's a great tech issue that I want to talk about. Seeing how the hosts mess up and seeing the audience reactions, and I do feel like we miss a bit of that when...
you don't get cheers and the like from Nintendo Directs.
But
And
if
if
saying
Ubisoft
that,
were
though,
a purely digital thing, we never would have seen the Rabbids developer crying about how proud he was of his game.
yeah, okay, yeah, there is that, like, and I suppose there is like the stuff like the what was the Yarny game, Unraveled? Like
yeah.
that. I mean,
Yarny 2.
as bad as it was with the guy coming on and like sort of stressing about doing his first announcement, it was kind of endearing.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I mean, you could still happily do it without everything. That because it's being live streamed, you don't necessarily need people there. Like there's outlets like Giant Bomb who just watch the live stream and stream it themselves and co-stream it, and they're not even in the room. So you kind of still get that atmosphere of people reacting to it.
But if I'm not a fan of Giant Bomb, then
There's hundreds
do
of
I go
people
to?
doing it. You just literally get.
we tried
Twitch
to
will
do
allow
it
you
with
to
Permadeath.
co-stream.
It's fucking, it's tiring.
I
It's
think
so tiring.
The other problem with that is that you've got people all giving their hot takes as it's happening, whereas like with an audience, you don't have 1,000 people in a room going, "This is awful. What have they done to Mario?" That would be
Yeah, it's
atrocious
just
to
like-
have. It's just like woo.
Yeah, it's just like excitement. Like you get an hour of just excitement before everyone's like, "This was terrible, and let me tell you why and how you're wrong." You know.
But maybe I want that. I don't know. Maybe
Well, if you do want that, then there are
Yeah.
avenues for you already
Yeah.
with people
clearly.
like Giant Bomb.
But then, I suppose the question is like, would you prefer it stuff being pre-announced and then you kind of knowing what's coming up at the show, or does that ruin the magic for you guys? Like knowing that
Only in very certain circumstances do I appreciate ahead of time announcements. Case in point, this one with this year, I'm really thankful that Bethesda have said we have Rage 2, we have a new Fallout game. You can come and see that if you want to. Because last year, like, I woke up at 3 a.m. or something to watch Bethesda's stream, and it sucked. It wasn't very good at all.
Was
I don't
anything
even remember
announced?
what they announced.
I don't think that anything was
yeah,
announced. It was just like DLC
Quake,
and
wasn't it?
no, Quake was the year before. Quake was during their first.
No,
their
it
first
was
conference.
Was it?
Yeah. They had a lot of stuff in their first conference.
Because it was
and
Doom.
then
Doom was in their first conference, and there was a
Yeah.
small teaser for Quake.
There was a teaser
in
for
it.
Quake.
Hold on.
But
Let's have a look.
in
I
the-
feel
in
like
the
it was
actual
just like
text.
Dishonored 2 DLC and things like that. It wasn't.
Everything Bethesda announced at E3 2017. Fallout 4 VR. The Creation Club will bring paid mods to
Oh, fuck
Bethesda
the Creation Club.
games. You can now use an amiibo to dress up as Link in Skyrim on Switch. It was the year of Skyrim.
Yeah. Again.
7 years after Skyrim came out. 6 years after
Every
Skyrim
year's
came
the
out.
year of Skyrim. I'm expecting Skyrim to be at E3 again this year.
Dishonored got some DLC. The Evil Within 2
Oh, yeah, that
hopefully got announced.
Yeah.
and Wolfenstein 2 got revealed.
Okay. So they announced 2 things.
But considering I'm not interested in either of those games, it was like, why am I awake?
I think
Why am I here?
I typically don't like to be told what's going to be talked about. Like the Sony one, we know that it's Kingdom Hearts.
No.
No,
Last
Last of Us 2.
Death Stranding.
Death Stranding and then, like, some other
Spider-Man.
things.
Ghost of.
Oh, the Ghost of the Sukado or whatever.
Yep, that one.
Tsushima.
Yeah, that's what I said. Ghost of Tsushima. But
Which, by the way, I'm really looking forward to seeing what that game's about. I don't know, it just, like, kind of ruins the magic for me, for the most part. Like, with Sony's kind of another extraneous circumstance as well, because they also broadcast at, like, 3 a.m. our time every year without fail. So I'm like, oh, I guess I appreciate them telling me that I'm probably going to fall asleep watching more Spider-Man footage that I don't want to see.
the problem is, like, when they say we're going to talk about these games, if I'm like not interested in half of them, then I am inclined to not watch the stream and just watch the VODs of the bits that I'm interested in. At which point, if there's any like smaller announcements that they've not actually told us about, I'm going to have missed those. And it's like, if EA say we're going to talk about FIFA and Madden and Battlefield 5 and Battlefront 2's new DLC that doesn't include microtransactions or whatever, they can say that they're going to talk about it, but it doesn't give me any information about when they're going to talk about it within their conference. So it could be that it happens
They did
first
it last year, though. They had a little thing on the bottom of the screen saying Star Wars Battlefront 2
at the end.
At this time, at the end, basically.
Yeah. But generally, it's like, we're going to talk about these things. Like, if you were interested in the Samurai Tsukido,
The Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, The Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us 2, you don't know whether it's going to be first or if it's going to be after an hour of Spider-Man or whatever. So there's no point in announcing what you're going to talk about in advance for me.
I think, like, if Nintendo were like, right, we're going to talk about these games, I'd be like, no, don't. Stop, because it wouldn't matter if Nintendo were announcing nothing that I was interested in. I'd still want to watch, and
but that's
basically, you were both there on my 27th birthday. No, 26th birthday. I can't maths. When we all got up at like 3 a.m. to watch the Switch conference, and they announced Fire Emblem Warriors, they announced New No More Heroes, they announced
Fire Emblem.
Xenoblade 2. No, that was a week later.
Oh, okay.
You were there when that happened, and I lost my shit when they announced Fire Emblem Warriors. And
Xenoblade.
I don't think I would have had that same reaction if they'd just gone like, Fire Emblem Warriors coming out next year on Switch over Twitter. Like, I wouldn't have been as hype, but because I was like seeing a trailer, trying to guess what it was, you guys were there. It was great.
Okay, well, here's the thing though, because like people have fractured off so much from E3. So you've got like EA doing the EA Play, which is obviously around E3. You've got the PlayStation Experience.
Pause for a sec. Pause.
Go on.
It's still part of E3, EA. You say it's not, but
it's the day before.
Because
it's the day before.
You're at the
E3.
conference. You're at the conference center.
You're at the conference.
But no,
you then proceed to come
let me finish.
You come into other people's conferences to talk about the stuff you've just talked about.
Okay, sorry, carry on, Andy.
But yeah, so I'm saying, like, you've got all of these different things now. So you've got EA Play, you've got BlizzCon, you've got the PlayStation Experience. If like all of the different like companies were to go, okay, instead of doing E3, instead of there being this week where everyone's focused on all of the different games and everything, if all of the different people dot themselves around the year and still do this the live stage show, the live stream stuff, would that be the same experience? I think it would, because you'd still be able to get the hype behind what they're going to announce. You'd still get like the stage presence of everyone being there and like the buzz of the atmosphere, but it's not necessarily going to be all condensed into one place. It will be spread out. So in that regard, you could happily do like the E3 stuff at any time of the year. So it's not 100% relevant. I don't think.
It is useful in the fact that I get most of my gaming news over the course of 4 days, and I don't have to worry about it. But
it's not 4 days anymore, though, is it? It's because
in terms of conferences, it's 4
like
days.
We're like a month out. We're a month out, and we were a month out when we were starting to get stuff like they were going to talk about at E3.
Yeah, but the actual like conferences are only 4 days. So I could ignore all of the Twitter stuff, the month building up, and I can get all of my news mostly in those 4 days. Plus, it's also like from the show floor aspect, which we as the public don't see.
I mean, you can do
obviously
now.
We can do, but it's useful from. I mean, I know that journalists despise E3 because of all the stuff, but it is useful in the sense of you can just go from on one airport ticket, one air flight ticket, and one hotel, you can do the Nintendo, you can do the Sony, you can do the Bethesda, you can do everything.
But you've got
on one
stuff
fee,
like
rather than
PAX.
having to go out. But PAX doesn't have like big announcements.
No, not necessarily.
PAX is
but
like
they
indie stuff.
But there's like PAX, there's EGX over in the UK. There's Insomnia in the even lesser so. But there are other places where you can go and take a look at games. Like
you can take a look at games.
It's just whether they want the like hot take as soon as it's been announced sort of like coverage. So I'm not saying like E3 is not relevant to us, but is relevant to, well, yeah, that is what I'm saying. It's like the show floor aspect of E3 for the most part is not relevant to anyone who is not in LA at that specific time. But they need to announce the games ahead of time before they start painting buildings with Vault Boy and announcing games that way.
From what I understand, like not everything on the show floor, also not everything that they're showing at E3 is on the show floor. Like there are a lot of closed door meetings where press is still like taken behind the scenes to have a look at X game. Like I know outlets get, okay, you're going to be looking at a game. We've got a game for you guys to look at. They're not going to tell you until like right up into it. So the public kind of misses out on basically. That.
Yeah. But like that's not stuff that we're supposed to know anyway. Like that's not for us. That's for video game industry professionals.
Yeah, but like it kind of goes back to the relevance of that. Like at any time it could all be condensed together and like saving your plane ticket, etc. But what's to stop like EA saying to, or maybe they're a bad example, but a company just saying, okay, we've got this game coming out. All of you journalists, we're gonna get you into this place here to look at it, which is what
you mean like review
developers
camps?
Do. Yeah. What's the difference between that and E3 other than sort of the review camp is sort of condensed into like a couple of days?
Invariably, you're not paid to go to E3.
No.
You're paid to go to a review camp and invariably pampered. No one's getting pampered at E3.
Review camps are also like a really gross practice, in my opinion.
I'm not saying I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with them, but I'm just saying like all of the different aspects of it can be broken up and spread about. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the same week or in the same few days.
I understand what you're saying.
So would you say that we are in mild agreement that the conference aspect of E3 is perhaps more relevant than the show floor stuff? The show floor stuff could much easier happen at any other point, where as opposed to having itty bitty conferences for, like, Nintendo Directs very rarely have teases. Aside from the E3 ones, invariably they're actually showing actual gameplay or whatever. So you wouldn't get a moment of being like, "Hey, we're gonna do Shenmue 3. Look at Mass Effect Andromeda. Look at Death Stranding." You wouldn't necessarily get those, and of course there are very few hour-long directs. They're all like 20 minutes, half an hour long. Because it is supposed to be like a quick sort of bite-size thing.
I mean, I can definitely see the relevance of stuff being together because everyone can be like, okay, I know that for this week I've got a set timetable where all of these developers are gonna be saying stuff, and we can look in. We've got our eyes onto it. Then for the rest of the year, we can necessarily forget about it. I can agree on that bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about the conferences and stuff is it's just kind of convenient. I don't know. You can take a week off work and just be like, yeah, this is the week that I'm going to learn about some new video games. Whereas if they were spread throughout the year, you'd be taking like odd days off.
There was nothing worse than being told like 12 hours in advance or a day in advance that there was going to be a Nintendo Direct tomorrow, and you have no clue what it's going to be, and it starts literally as I finish work, So you're like, I could have taken a day off for that. So yeah, in that regard, it's quite nice for me to be able to book a block of time off and just be like, here's my Sony, here's my Microsoft, here's my EA.
I think it must still be relevant because there seems to be a lot more stuff going on around E3 this year.
But whether that is because like they're trying to make it more relevant by inviting the public into E3 and like selling all of the tickets. I mean, from
Did they not start that a couple of years ago?
Last year was the first time.
I think it was last year was the first.
I mean, not to say that like non-press have managed to get into it before, because from what I hear, there's a lot of non-press that managed to get into E3 before.
Just a few.
The definition of press was looser over the last few years. Like we were talking about, this is mostly me reminding myself. Sorry, talking about whether leaks and pre-E3 announcements negate the value of E3, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't remember Andy saying whether things like all the blops and the like being talked about or announced beforehand diminishes your... are you less inclined to watch E3 when there's all these snippets of a 20-second thing here, a 20-minute thing there, here a thing, there a thing, everywhere a game thing.
Everywhere a thing.
Yes and no. Because you've kind of, I think Ebbie sort of covered this earlier when I'm saying if she knows what's coming up, like if I know everything that's coming up in like the Sony press conference, if I'm not interested in any of the things there, then I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to bother being like, okay, yeah, I know that, like, I'm not interested in The Last of Us 2. I am, but just taking that as an example, like, okay, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in the other 3 games that they're mainly going to be talking about. So why bother watching it?
Yeah.
Like, so I think it does diminish it in a way, but then it. So as if they tactically release everything, but stuff like Black Ops. Okay, you didn't necessarily know it was going to be Black Ops, but you knew that there was going to be a Call of Duty.
Yeah.
So there's like all of the Call of Duty fanboys that are like, okay, so I know it's coming up. I've had a teaser for it. Now that might have hyped me up to watch some more at E3 and actually tune into the what Activision have got to say about it. So yeah, I think it depends on what it is, and it depends on how much they've teased. Like Fallout 76. Go on.
I think that the how much they tell us is my problem, because that's what, like, sorry to cut your point off. I'll let you get back to it in a second. But the thing for me is that I've always enjoyed the surprise of E3. Like, even if it is just like, I'll never forget that one year where they announced Final Fantasy VII Remake, The Last Guardian, and Shenmue 3 all in one press conference. Because, like, even though I wasn't attached to any of those franchises, I knew how massive that was. And it was really cool to, like, be there when everyone else found out about it, if you know what I mean.
It
I don't know, knowing about things in advance sort of ruined that aspect for me.
Yeah, like if Squeenix was showing... Squeenix does do Final Fantasy, don't they? Yeah. If they were, like, showing off high-res renders of Cloud in his poofy hair like 2 weeks in advance, you're like, well, why would they bother doing that if they weren't remaking it? So it's...
Yeah.
But like...
I just like it being, like, Gamers Christmas. Like, we've always described it as Gamers Christmas here. And it feels like it's less about that now, because it's like... I don't know if you've ever been Christmas shopping with your parents and they're like, oh, do you want this for Christmas? And you're like, yeah, sure. And then you don't get to see that thing until Christmas.
Yeah,
you know what it is.
It generally turns out, what do you want for Christmas? Like, I don't know. And I buy something and they're like, can we put this away for Christmas? Like, okay, I guess I won't see that for another few months.
That was pretty much how it went with my Wii. It was a case of, I was picked up in the car on the day of the Wii's release, and it was sat next to me in a Toys R Us bag. And I was like, can I have a look at it? It's like, no, it's a Christmas present. You've got to wait till Christmas. I'm like, no. And then Twilight Princess came to my house like the day after, and I had to hide it from my mum because she was like, you better not have ordered or done anything or like got the case ready before Christmas. I'm like, no, I haven't. It's still in the packet. I promise. I've not sniffed the disc.
There was also the time where I got bought Final Fantasy VIII for I think it was a birthday, and I knew that I had it because I was there when they bought it, and I found out where they were hiding it around the house, so I was secretly sneaking it out to play it, and then putting it back in the case. So by the time my birthday came around, I'd already played the first disc of it, so it was less exciting. But
that's exactly what it is. That's what E3 is like nowadays. It's like you found the copy of Final Fantasy VIII that your parents bought you, and you've sneakily been playing it.
So you were saying how much of a tease is what irks you? Is the Fallout 76 enough of a tease that it's basically spoiled the fun, but seeing a full gameplay session of Battlefield 5 would be less of a tease and more of just an announcement in advance?
I don't know if I'm the tease that 76 Fallout 76 they gave out okay, it was after a day and etc. So we would ignore that, but it's kind of made me go, oh shit, there's all of these aspects of it of the game, and we know the rough setting of it, and we kind of know bits around it just because of some of the different lore from Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, and it's kind of okay, that's kind of made me excited to watch the Bethesda conference now, because I know they're going to talk about it, because it's definitely going to be there. But I'm intrigued to see what more they're going to show, because now they've got the initial announcement out of the way, they can pretty much focus on pure gameplay, whether it is just going to be this Rust style sort of MMO, or not MMO, online game, or an actual single player thing. But
I think that's the thing that bugs me the most about these half announcements, is then all the rumours start coming out about what it is.
I mean, I kind of like that in a way, though.
I'm not a fan of it, because there's so many rumours that it's I don't know which ones to listen to and which ones to ignore.
I think
that's half the fun.
Ultimately, though, that's the difference between a rumour and a theory. And the problem is that when in the leak-heavy world that we live in, it's always leaning towards rumour/leak than it is, I have a theory that this is what the game is going to be.
I'm going to say this now. Companies need to fix their plumbing to stop these leaks. It's stupid. How many leaks have been happening of late?
Although, talking on Bethesda again, last year Bethesda was crap. Do you think companies look back at the last year of E3 and say, okay, this did not go well, people are less likely to tune in to listen to our stuff, we need to hook them in with something, and then they do a thing like tease/announce with Fallout 76?
I don't know, because they teased Fallout 4 before their first E3 press conference, so they must have known something then. But I think companies have to look back on what happened at E3, and I'm convinced that the Skyward Sword demo is what made Nintendo stop doing conferences.
Yeah.
Because it was...
That had a few tech issues.
Not very good. It's not very good at all. But, I don't know, I'm just convinced that they have to look back and go, here's what happened last year, here's the reaction to everything. Unless this year, Death Stranding is just another CG trailer with Norman Reedus in it, then they don't listen to us. They do not listen to us at all.
Kojima will be done when Kojima's done, man.
Kojima can be done when Kojima's
stop
done, but don't talk about it.
This is Kojima, Square Enix, stop announcing games before they're even close to being done. Death Stranding wasn't even started when he fucking announced it. Stop.
But that's the advantage of them.
At least with Square
doing
Enix,
these
they've shown
beforehand.
They show some element of game. Sure, they might scrap the game later on, but they're at least showing something. Mr. Kojima has literally just shown us some...
Final Fantasy VII.
Yes, they did. They showed some of the combat.
They've shown...
I take that back.
And obviously Kingdom Hearts, we've seen bits and pieces, but Death Stranding has literally just been trailers of Norman Reedus and Mads Mikkelsen. No one knows whether that's a stealth game, an action game, a survival horror, a co-op
but you can
Puzzler.
pre-order it. That's the most important part.
Yeah, you can pre-order it. You can pre-order Fallout 76.
Yeah, I'm not going to because I don't know what it is, but like this is the thing, is there's a difference between a tease, a leak, and an announcement. The Fallout thing felt like it was definitely building up to more of an announcement than it ended up doing. Because I gotta be honest, a little bit underwhelmed after watching that stream for God knows how long.
Yeah, you'd have expected even a hint of a tease as to what the game actually is, rather than just like a cinematic.
Yeah, I think that's what I found to be kind of disappointing, is they were just like, ooh, look, it's a vault, but it's a happy vault instead of a sad vault, and it's
But
like, well, what does...
You can like assume so much around it though, but it's kind of just I think it was deliberate to build up hype for their E3 show though, because they've deliberately picked a vault that was talked about in Fallout 3 that we know was one of the control vaults that was meant to open 20 years after a nuclear war happened. We know that at that time in 2097, there's not going to be any civilizations that have gone and built anything up, so you can kind of start to draw influences from what the game's going to be like and how it is. And especially if you kind of start looking at some of the stuff that Kotaku's been talking about, whether it's actually true or not. But there are lots of little hidden things in the trailer that you can just pick up on as well. So I think it's just a hype tool. That's all they're doing. They're going. Still 2 weeks to E3. We're gonna hype you up for this because there's a lot of Fallout fans that are looking forward to another game. Generally in the cycle of Fallout games, it hasn't been this quick, apart from between 3 and New Vegas. And they're boom.
Todd Howard was there, so I assume it's Bethesda Game Studios that's actually working on it.
Yeah, it's definitely
is weird because I thought they were working on Starfield.
What's Starfield?
I mean, that's only ever been rumoured though. It was a rumoured, sci-fi RPG which was meant to be in the Fallout universe. But whether it is a whole bait and switch of, hey, this is actually when they leave it, they go into space or something really weird.
Yeah, the vault blasts off from the ground.
What if the vault is in space? It's a vault in space. That could be a thing, even though we know
what
it's
if?
kind of
What if? That's a good.
So you're talking about the 100.
Yeah. But yeah, and no, it's definitely not Obsidian, because Obsidian sort of tweeted out the fact that they weren't working on it.
Yeah, it's not us.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, there's just this. I don't know if this is getting off topic or whatever, but I still think that E3 is relevant to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's mainly just my end point for this discussion, is I think it's still relevant to some people, whether or not we are that people. That's different. I still think I am the person who
E3 is meant for.
E3
Well, the
is
conference
meant for,
part is meant
because...
for.
Yeah, and the treehouse. I enjoyed the
Treehouse is
treehouse
good.
bit. But it sounds like Andy doesn't think the same way.
I think I agree that the I say it again, the idea of not necessarily E3 itself, but the idea of having everything close together in a time period that is relevant. But the context, what that is, even if it was just all of the different places having their own thing on the same week, it doesn't need to have the E3 name tagged onto it. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess it just makes it easier.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Kinross?
Mine are pretty much the same as yours. I think that I despise the leak. My feeling towards leaks is almost the same as Bill's towards spoilers. I basically count leaks as spoilers for games' existence.
Yeah.
And particularly, what tends to happen is you very rarely get, one game leaked. You'll get, 20 games leaked, and half of them are actually not true.
Leak, yeah.
And then the other half are. So you're either getting hype about these games that aren't ever going to see the light of day because they're fake, or you're dismissing various ideas. I prefer my news to be legitimate. Non-fake game news.
I just think... I think something leaked literally hours before it was actually announced at 1E3. It might have been at the Bethesda conference. Something about Fallout 4, to be honest.
Fallout...
And it's just like...
Oh, the... Because they had that ARG going on that was actually a fan thing, and then the actual game leaked, and then they announced the game.
No, it was something... It was... Yeah, it was that happened, but it was something different.
Okay.
Because it was like... E3 was happening that afternoon, but about midday on that day, someone was like, here's a game that's going to get announced in 2 hours, and it's like, why bother? Like,
Yeah.
who's that eager for news? But,
Websites.
yeah, I suppose. It's just, I don't know. That's my takeaway. I don't know.
I mean, all in all, I think that if I may pat ourselves on the back, we're not ones for concise discussion, and
No.
you can tell in this that we've still not quite got the hang of it. But I think that we've done a pretty good job of talking about a thing, things around the thing, in a concise time.
Yeah, I'm proud of us.
Yep, we've definitely
Are you
talked
proud
about
of
a
us,
thing.
Andy?
I'm proud of you guys. Seeing as I've listened to a lot of permadeaths and you guys go off on tangents everywhere, I don't think we've gone
Yes,
on
you have.
such a big tangent today.
There have been tangents,
Well,
but
yeah,
they've
it's just
been like
been one-
coming back, as opposed to
It's
like
one
talking about a game.
big
then.
tangent.
It's like a Telltale game. We started off in one direction, we kind of went all over the place, and we ended in the right place.
Yeah, but the end is
Yeah,
determined
exactly.
anyway, regardless of your choices.
Yes.
See also Life is Strange.
So, is there anything else that either of you two would like to add before we wrap up?
I think I've said everything.
Do you want to say your bit
on
again,
the-
and I won't laugh this time?
Oh, what you want me to tell you about my stuff?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
If you've had fun so far.
If you've had, there you go. This is where it's relevant now. If you guys have had fun in the last half an hour or 40 minutes or whatever this actually runtime was, then maybe you should go and check me out on twitch.tv/RYU101 at RYW101, twitter.com/RYU101. And at the minute we're streaming Stardew Valley on Mondays at 7 PM BST and Yakuza 0 on Wednesday 7 PM BST. Having a fun time. Yeah.
Woo.
Check me out.
It's a shame that you're gonna not be there for like a little bit of time
Yeah.
after this goes live. But
Yeah,
whatever.
Whatevs. Twitch.tv/RYU101.
Twitch TV. I was only going to say, I'm going to assume that this comes out before E3. Next episode will be live streamed, but it won't be the week of E3. It'll be a week or so after. And I hope that you all come along. And obviously, I hope that you've enjoyed Ebbie's new show, because it's definitely Ebbie's show. If anything goes wrong, it's her fault. But if anything goes awesome, it's also her fault. So you can thank Ebbie. Yeah, I think that this is an idea that could get better.
Yeah, I think we'll improve over time. The problem is we don't have Bill here to, shout about corn nuts.
Mm.
That's what he does, right?
I don't think he's.
I've only known him like 6 years.
I don't
That's
think he's
the thing
talked
that
about
he does,
corn
right?
nuts for ages, but it's the one thing that we always go back
Look,
to.
it's
That and the pin.
it's what I remember.
Stabbing himself with the goddamn pin.
So if you have any feedback for us on the show or any topics you think we should discuss, let us know. You can comment on our YouTube video.
Mhm.
Assuming you're listening to this on iTunes, you can go to youtube.com/permadeath podcast, I think.
Or you could tweet us at permapodcast.
Yes, or you can tweet us at permapodcast and let us know what you think. That would be appreciated. And I promise we will get Bill on here one day, because I know he's really the reason why you're here. So.
Oh, also, Ebbie, how often are these post games going to be?
I don't know yet, because I'm scared of commitment.
Okay.
The short answer is not as regular as normal episodes, theoretically,
unless
we manage to bash a load out. But
you really like them, and then maybe we'll work harder on it. But this is the first in a slew of eventual content to come to Permadeath Podcast, so watch out, world, here we come. We're gonna get that YouTube, Google AdSense any day now.
oh man, I've got to get it back.
We're never getting it back. No. Alright, thank you for listening, and we will see you in the history, because that ain't going anywhere.
This has been the Postgame Podcast. Permadeath Postgame. Total Power
Podcast.
Okay. Goodbye.